Welcome to another episode of the NYC Godcast. So happy to have you along. Well, first off, we want to kind of address the elephant in the room. Hi, Jayme.
Jayme, I was thinking you would be the elephant in the room.
Yeah, you're the elephant in the room.
Am I that big?
You're the weird one.
Oh, I was thinking fat.
Oh.
See, when I call you fat, it's kind of a joke because everyone knows you're not fat.
Yep.
You call me fat, I feel very self-conscious all of a sudden.
I'm pretty sure I weigh more than you. So
we'll get back to you on that. But the real elephant we were talking about is we're in a new room. We're in the brand new NOC Godcast room. So we're so excited about that and what a blessing that is to have this. So anyways, it doesn't matter probably to any of you, but we're excited to be here. So we're officially in the middle of our February season. And I've got to give props to apparently CJ for last week's title. Dude, that was probably my favorite title we've ever had on any episode ever.
Good.
I was so, and it wasn't even impressive when you read it until you listen to the episode. I'm like, dude, that is such a
and it's
perfect
not real.
title.
I mean, it's slightly alliterated, but it's not even 100%
it's almost
alliterated.
a pun. Like, it's almost like it means something deep. I was
It was
so
good.
impressed.
It was
So
good.
no
I think
pressure,
it was an
Jayme.
accident on CJ's part, but I mean, it was good.
It was good. So
I feel no pressure.
We're going to let CJ...
He's in training. He's
We're
like,
going to let CJ do all the titles
that'd be
and
great.
see what happens.
he does most of my titles, to be honest. If you don't, then
And
he
I
does.
do your charge of challenges.
What are you
Jayme.
even bringing to this? This is sad.
I filled this seat, that is my
You
job.
don't even talk on the episode.
I didn't fill my seat, that's what I do.
She's standing next to episode. So, anyways.
And they'll mess up the shot, and then
Right,
it'll be
then
good.
it'll still be her
You
fault.
just leave.
So we're continuing on through John 15. So this is this week. I have two verses, which are possibly two of the most famous verses, I would say, in all the book of John, maybe even in the New Testament. You know, everyone knows John 3:16, but these two verses, like, they are very well known, even in the world. Like, everyone knows these two verses. And so yet, as per usual, though we know them, we don't know them.
Yeah.
And so you do not look amused at all. She's like, I do know John. We talk all the time. She's very judgmental over there. Just fill your seat and be happy.
I wasn't saying anything.
I know,
was
that's
just-
the problem. Let's read John 15:12.
Let's do this.
This is my commandment, that ye love one another, as I have loved you. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. And so I think a lot of us read these verses and we're like, yeesh, like, ooh, you're my friend and I love you, but yeesh. And quite frankly, like, can we agree Jesus gave a pretty tall order here? Like, it's not like that's a really tall. I mean, honestly, I'd rather keep the Sabbath or obey my parents. Let's just stick, I'll just stick with those. Those are a little better. But love each other, like. And then, like, so that would be bad enough. But then Jesus goes on, right? It's not just any love. Jesus knew that if he said just to love one another, what we would do is we would call a slight affection love, or we would call an acute acquaintance love.
Yeah, like a not sacrificial, superficial.
Yeah, superficial love. Like we would call a timid toleration for each other love. And that's what I would say in church. Most all the time, we will call...
It'll be like, love you, brother.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's about it's very, very shallow love. And so Jesus says this is my commandment. This is the totality of all of my teachings, a summary of the spiritual. Love one another in the same way that I, Jesus, loved you.
Yep.
Talk about impossible, right? That kind of clears the air for saying, oh yeah, I got this covered. Like, that's Eesh,
Yeah,
eesh.
it's a lot.
Give me I'll keep the Sabbath.
I didn't kill anyone today.
Yeah, I didn't kill anyone. The sad reality, though, the sad reality for a lot of Christians is that we've cheapened love. We've robbed our relationships of true love. Because what I mean, and you kind of already alluded to this, we shake hands on a Sunday morning with a fake smile, and we call that love. We say we love one another in the church. We ask how someone's week has went, and we call that love. We may buy gifts. We may give compliments. We might even do a nice gesture. And in doing so, we're attempting to demonstrate love for one another in the church, right, spiritually. And maybe even beyond the church, maybe for your spouse, maybe for your parents or your kids. But we do it in these like superficial ways. And yet Jesus pops our pretty little believer bubble. CJ didn't make that up.
I want you to say that again.
I will. Jesus pops our pretty little believer bubble one more
Do you
time.
practice these? I just want to know.
in the shower. I'm in the little bubble.
He uses the
Bubble.
you know, like the finger paints that you can get for everything. He's writing them in the shower.
But he pops our pretty little believer bubble and tells us that none of this is love.
Yeah.
None of this is love. Everything you're calling love as a Christian is not love.
Yeah.
None of this is what I'm talking about, Jesus says. None of this is what I did for you.
I'm still here.
So Jesus says this is my commandment. This is my rule. This is my call to action. This is my charge up challenge to you as a Christian, right? Jesus says, love like I, Jesus, loved. Well, how did Jesus love exactly?
A lot of sacrifice.
A lot of, oh yeah.
A lot of sacrifice.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's the thing is like, I think that even among family members, and even I would say that in this room we have like a love for one another. You know what I mean? Like we've known each other for a long time.
I'm getting squishy
Some of us more
inside.
than others, apparently. I feel very lovely.
Rachel, I love you.
I love you.
I don't believe you.
But like, I think that a lot of times it's almost like how we do our check mark list
Yeah,
for God.
definitely.
We do our check mark list for everyone else.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's not the, oh, I talked to them today. Oh, I said hi to them today. It's the getting to know them, to be sacrificial in the part of if they need something and it burdens you, you're going to do it either way. You know
Yep.
what I mean?
As per usual, James got this.
I'm sorry.
No, totally exactly right. What we're missing in our relationships with one another, what we're missing in our relationships in the church, and even honestly, what we're missing in our relationship with God, right? We say we love God. Sacrifice.
Yeah.
That's what gave Jesus the love he had for those around him. And so he tells us, again, we go back to the verses that we just read. He says, love one another as I have loved you. How did you love us, Jesus? Well, no greater love than this. Lay down your life. What does that mean? Sacrifice. And so he tells us by laying down his life on behalf of his friends, that is how you will have the same love that I have. And ironically, we were talking a little bit before the podcast. Ironically, this wasn't actually supposed to be my week for the podcast. We did a little switcheroo. But this verse, in a lot of ways, is what directed my heart towards this series in John 15, is just that thought of, love like Jesus loved. Love the way he loved. How did he love? Sacrificially, with all of him.
Yep.
And a lot of times we hear these verses, right? Especially the latter verse where it says, no greater love than this, lay down your life for a friend. A lot of times we hear that around Memorial Day, Veterans Day, right? We might hear that if a police officer is killed or someone does something heroic, giving their life, right? And we are totally we are thankful for every person who's paid the ultimate sacrifice. That means a lot to us here at this church and in this ministry. And so we're no way belittling that. But as gingerly as I can, that's actually not what Jesus is talking about here. And that's what really began to provoke my mind in this direction. That's not what Jesus says here. That really, by using that verse for that, we're almost taking it out of context.
Yeah.
Because if you look at this verse, if you take a look a little bit deeper under the surface, the word Jesus uses here for lay down, as in lay down your life for your friends, it actually means to cast off. It means to lay aside. It means to remove like a coat or clothing.
Yeah.
That's different than dying for a cause.
Yeah.
And the reason it's different is that this word that Jesus uses is all about being intentional, like going intentionally to do it. It's about purposefully removing what rightfully belongs to you, what definitively defines you, right?
Yeah.
It's about being intentional on getting rid of you for someone else
Yeah.
and laying it down so that it doesn't count on your behalf any longer, but it counts on someone else's behalf. In other words, Jesus is saying here that to love, to choose the life of others over your own active life. That's how you actually love. Like Jayme said, sacrifice. And so how are we to love? We're supposed to love by choosing Jayme over Josh. And Rachel over Josh, right? That's how we love. We choose the other over ourselves.
Well, and I think that's the whole thing. It's just like when you're talking about the commandments and it says we're not supposed to kill. That also means we're not supposed to be angry with one
Right.
another. So I think that a lot of us, like you just said, we'll use it as an excuse. Oh, I would lay down my life for that person.
And would that be easier in some ways? Like, I would rather take a bullet than actually have to...
Yeah. Well, even at
Choose
that,
you
how
over
many
me.
people are you going to actually have to lay down your life for?
Well, and that's the exact point. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing. We're totally cheapening this entire section, this entire verse, when we're saying that's what this verse means.
Yeah.
Because in all realisticness, we're never going to have that chance.
Yeah.
So does that mean this verse is void and useless to Christians if you're not going to die a hero? Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
So in order for this to be in context, in order for this to be actually what Jesus meant, it has to be while we're alive.
Yes.
And so although Jesus, we know in a very short amount of time after this verse, he's going to go and he's actually going to lay down his life in death on the cross for his friends. He's going to literally do that with his life. But what I really want us to grasp today, and I hope we're getting this across, what I want us to grasp today is Jesus laid down his life while he was alive. That was the love he was talking about. Not in death, but in life, he laid down his life. Do you guys recognize that while on earth, while Jesus was here as a man, Jesus could have been famous.
Yep.
Like we're talking over the top Elvis beyond famous. Like the most famous of all famous. He could have been
Do people know who Elvis is anymore?
Oh, that's not good. He was a man who was very famous. Is the point, Jayme. Well, that's not good. Jesus could have been worldwide famous. He could have been like world ruler famous. He could have literally ruled the world. In fact, we read in the Gospels, and Jesus was constantly being chased by crowds. Like literally, he would be chased by them. He was giving, he would slip away from the crowds. The disciples would come and be like, "There's a crowd here to see," and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go hide from that."
Yeah.
The Bible says that his fame grew among the people daily. So he kept, not only was he, famous, but he kept growing in that fame. We fast forward, we know that on Palm Sunday, a lot of people praised him with this belief that he came to set up a kingdom and he came to rule. And so Jesus could have easily been a king. He could have easily had royalty. He could have easily, had royalty that this world had never seen before. Yeah. Jesus was God in flesh, meaning that he was equal with God. He had everything God had. And yet, as Paul writes in Philippians 2, Jesus laid down his godness in order to serve mere man. And so Jesus could have spent his whole life doing miracles, right? Because he was God. He had the capabilities of God. He could have continued to do even larger and larger and more grander things. He could have flexed his wisdom. He could have been a genius, right? God in flesh. He knows all things. He could have been a genius. He could have proved wrong every scholar. That's what he could have spent his life doing. He could have spent his life doing humanitarian work, right? Doing good deeds, doing good deeds and gaining a reputation for himself. Jesus could have been rich. Jesus could have easily said, "I command you, give me all the wealth of the world." He could have easily done that. And on 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 we could go of the things Jesus could have done with his life. Yeah. Like, we read what the Bible says, but have you ever considered what the Bible is not saying?
Yeah.
All the things Jesus could have done with his life. But what did he do instead? Jesus instead chose to invest his life into a small ragtag team of rough-edged, uneducated disciples. That's what he chose to do with his life. Yeah. Jesus laid down his life. He laid down all the fortune, all the fame, all the prestige, all the royalty. He laid all of that down for this small group of guys, choosing their life over the life he could have had while he was still alive. That's what love is. That's what it's actually.
And I think that we lose that, just like you're saying, this is something that the Bible doesn't say necessarily. And so I think that we lose that because we're just assuming it's Jesus.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what we talked in the podcast a while ago, but like how he had a choice.
Right.
And so like we forget that he was a human as much as he was God. So I think that we lose that translation of he could have chose all those things. And it wasn't just he's God's son, so he was just going to do these things. You know what I mean?
So would you agree with this? Rachel, would you agree with this? Would you agree? We're going to tag
team.
Tag team?
Oh, you bring something to the table now, do you?
Tag team.
Okay. Would you agree with this? Your relationship, so whether it's with God, whether it's with your spouse, whether it's with your parents, your kids, with your friends, with people in the church, your relationship is only as healthy as your sacrifice. As far as like the more of you're laying down and the more of them you're picking up, that's how you grade the health of your love. That's very wordy way of saying it.
What I was going to say was, I feel like there's so much, like I've had conversations with people who are like, "Oh, well, I love them, but." Yeah. And there's always that but.
Absolutely.
But you kind of have to take away the but. Can I say that? Am I not to say that? But like, I think that this is the opposite, the complete opposite of what the world tells you. Because first the world says, you take care of you. You do, and like if someone asks you to do something that makes you put yourself out, they're like, well, they're just trying to take advantage of you. You're not, and it's just like, no, I love them. Yeah. I want to do this.
And like, do we see how that makes sense in some regards? So you're a parent.
A little bit.
And I am.
I am not.
So,
I'm not a parent. I'll just.
but you work in kids ministry. Yeah, and you have a husband. He's a kid. He's a kid. So we see this, like, we get the sacrifice for that. Like, I sacrifice for my child.
Yeah.
I love her with all I am. I would take a bullet for her. But I also sacrifice in picking out her clothes and making her lunch and playing with her when I am tired. Like, I'm willing to sacrifice there, and that makes sense to me. I am showing it when I play Barbies.
When you what? What did you do?
I know in my mind I do not want to do this, but I'm doing it because I love her. So that sacrifice makes sense. Do we see how that's not supposed to be unique to the child-parent relationship?
Yes.
That's supposed to be for you guys. That's supposed to be for the church. That's supposed to be for God. That is literally what Jesus is saying here defines our love. How much of you are you willing to lay down for them? That's how you define love.
And I think honestly, and I don't know, and it could be the flip turn side other way too. So
I think you just landed on the same side we started.
So like in the world we live in, it's almost seem as disrespectful though.
Yeah.
So like if somebody needs something, or in the church and you're trying to show them love, even if you're doing it in the right, a lot of times they won't want to accept it, or they won't want to do it because it's a pride issue on both ends.
Yeah.
So I think it's a pride issue either way. Like if you don't want to give it because it's like, it's me, like I have to worry about me. But then the other side's also prideful.
And the other thing, like, I feel like really the biggest thing in our way of loving like Jesus is us. Like, because how often, I mean, in church, in camp, in ministry, and all that we do, how often do we hear, well, I don't have to, or I have the rights, or I should be able to do this. I shouldn't have to do that. Like you said, I shouldn't have to. That's the problem. We're living for ourselves. We're living our life for us. And by doing that, we're lacking love, because what is love? Love is laying down your life. Love is giving your life for someone else. And I just feel like as big of a deal as that is, as big of a deal as Jesus made that, we've kind of lost the whole point.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
One of the, this is a little different take, but one of the podcasts I listen to regularly, one of these preachers, he says often that we should be competing for the lowest position. When it comes to serving, when it comes to sacrificing, when it comes to giving myself on behalf of the others, we should be competing. So like James over there doing the dishes, and I'm like, I'm gonna go take the trash out. And then Rachel comes along, she's like, I'm gonna go sweep the floor. Like we're trying to out serve and out surrender and out sacrifice each other. And so like Jayme goes and helps, move Rachel's couch, and I'm like, your windows need wash. And I go,
I like this.
Do you see what I'm saying?
You guys can go to my house anytime.
What would it look like in the church if we had that mindset?
Yeah.
If we were constantly trying to not compete, but constantly trying to beat the other person's sacrifice, like trying to love more than the other person.
Well, more things would get done.
Well, that's for sure.
More things would get done in a timely manner.
Yeah.
But
do you see what that would mean to them?
There'd be a unity.
There'd be unity, and even just to me, according to not even me, according to Jesus, we would actually know what it's like to be loved.
Yeah.
Not a handshake, not a pat on the back, but like we would actually know what it is like to be loved. Why? Because Jayme's given her life for me, and Rachel's given her life for me, and I'm giving my life for her, and I guess for her too. And so, do you say like that's true love?
Yeah.
Maybe some of us we've never been loved before.
I can think of a time or two that I know people have put themselves out for me, and those are things that
it stands out.
Yeah, you remember them.
You do.
So we kind of already talked about this, but the day may or may not come when we have that opportunity to actually lay down our life. When we step in front of a bullet, we save someone with our literal life, and we lay ours down in death. That may or may not ever take place. But every single day, we have a brand new chance to love like Jesus loved, to love with our life laid down. And so every day we can choose to cast off our own lives. We can choose to cast off our desires, our dreams, our opinions, our interests, whatever it is. And instead, we can choose to love those around us. And so this is the commandment. That's what's ironic, is like this is something we've never heard. This is totally foreign. We've spent our entire lives in church thinking we know what love is, and come to find out we have no idea what love is. But this is the ironic thing. Jesus said, this is my commandment.
Yeah.
This is what it's all about. Boil everything down. Boil the Bible down. This is what you are to do. This is the totality of my teachings. This is my commandment. Everything else will fall into place if you will do this.
Yeah.
And so this is what he says. This is my desire for those who claim my name as a Christian. Love like he loved. Love enough to lay down your life on behalf of others. And Jesus says, if you'll do that, there is no greater love.
Yep.
That is loving like Jesus. Well, I've got a considerable quote here from Leonard Ravenhill, which I don't know that I've used
Is he
before.
a dead guy?
He, of course.
Okay.
Do guys still alive say anything good?
No, they did not. I can speak from experience. I'm a living guy.
I've never said anything smart in my life.
Leonard Ravenhill, another one. Yes, I love old dead guys. This is another one I love. He says this. Were we doing something here? Okay, we were quoting a dead guy. So he says this. I want to see a fellowship here. Your burdens become mine. Your grief over your children become my grief. Where we really bear each other's burdens. Where we love each other and let the world come to see that we are the followers of the meek and lowly Jesus who cared only to do the will of the Father. So today's Charge Up Challenge, I'd like to challenge everyone to intentionally love this week. Not the shaking of hands, not the patting on the back, not saying I love you, brother. But I want you to be intentional in laying down your life on the behalf of someone else. So don't go run in front of a car.
Oh.
I wanted to clarify that. But I want you to be intentional with laying down your life in life. So instead of self-indulging this week, instead of Netflix and binge, instead of video games, instead of whatever it is that you usually do, instead I want you to intentionally invest that time in someone else. So maybe playing barbers with your daughter. Or maybe washing someone's windows, or it may be moving someone's couch. I want you to be intentional with your personal time and give that to someone else. And so maybe that means calling an old friend to see how they're doing. Maybe it's helping your parents around the house with chores. Whatever it may be, this week, put this into practice and be intentional with choosing the life of someone else over your own life. Today's feature, did I do these out of order? Do we usually?
I don't know that we do them
Is
in the
there an
same
actual
order.
order?
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if there's an actual order.
We're new here. We're just making this whole thing up.
Yeah.
Jayme was about to give us like
there
some.
was an order,
I usually
but
do
I
charge
don't
up
know.
I say
challenge.
Jamie's about to tell us there's like rules and things she's been doing all along.
And
We were
I
supposed to
usually
do.
do the charge up challenge considerable quote.
I thought it was
then.
supposed to be a quote
I thought I
content
did.
challenge.
It doesn't matter.
But
It's all getting there.
It's all getting there. CJ just like
He's just shaking his
judgy.
head. Yeah.
Anyways, today's song is How Deep the Father's Love for Us. Such a great song with such rich lyrics. I have it by Shane and Shane, but there's so many great people who sing this. So, well, friends, thanks so much for joining us. We hope you love us and we love you. I feel like Barney. But anyways, we hope you'll join us next week as we continue on through Love Like Jesus. Until next time, see ya.
Bye.